Mother raised the son in order to redeem the father. This all in the magic. They have
Mm-hmm.
to villainize the women because if the women become conscious of the knowledge and the Sufis is practicing the rituals to raise the mitochondrial frequency, every mystic Sufi had a daughter that he taught in secret the sacred ritual to raise the mitochondrial frequency in order to purge wickedness from the earth. And so now those daughters, they called the daughters of the Sufi in the occult world. In the secret, they fall under the ancient Arab order of the nobles of the mystic shrine, or the keepers of the great shrine of the great mother. The great shrine represented in the takeover by the Vatican, named after Vaticus, the sister named Vaticus, who they built the the temple on top of her graveyard or grave site, depending on how you want to call it.
Okay. How does popular cultures affect the perception of sorcery? I wanna get stay on that sorcery thing for a minute.
Okay. So look, in the society we live in, they call it a Judeo-Christian society.
Hmm.
What that means is they are going to use the Judeo-Christian philosophical standards of influence in order for the people to respond in a particular way. And this is what's going to be the driving force for the development of a society. As long as you control the creator gods and the ruler gods and how they react to creation, you can steer how creation manifests through the great egregore, which is the universal mind. It's like you hijacking it with the help of all of the other guys that don't know they're helping you, because you put circumstances in a path and you corral them like the farmer do the cows in order to get it from one part of the farm to the other, right? So they use what's called influence by having certain people speak on magic in a negative manner, right? And a lot of the types of magic are so vilified, and that's how they use the barrier of fear, which generates the common people's perception of what magic is and how it works, and that the devil is behind it. But you don't know that you the devil's agent because you're using his magic on yourself. That's
Hmm.
called the Amen spell. That's why all of the religions say Amen after they prayer, except the Buddhists.
Have you witnessed real sorcery?
Yeah, I know how to do it, but I don't do it.
Well, they say that sorcery is evil.
No, well, it can be used for evil.
Hmm.
It's like what Darth Vader told Luke Skywalker about the Force. He said, no, what I mean, Obi-Wan. He said, Luke, the Force is neither good nor bad. It is the intention of the Jedi who wields the Force that determines whether it's good or bad. You can use the magic for constructive or destructive purposes, or you can just use them to sustain something, right? The Force doesn't care about 3D reality. Only 3D beings care about 3D reality. The Force encompasses and permeates 3D, but is not controlled by 3D. But you, as one of the gods, have sufficient enough control to contribute to the change. And that's why you have this mantra, be the change you want to see, right? People just think it sounds cute, but it's a scientific underpinning to that. You have to get the attention of the other powerful minds who may be distracted by finding the common thread because they all link up. And the
Okay.
universal mind is like a spider web.
All right. Once again, family, we're speaking with our brother Rod Hayes. Rod Hayes is going in and breaking down this science, man. I love it. Straight from the head, too. Notice, I want y'all to notice that. Straight from the head. No notes. No notes. He got it all right here. So,
Stay ready, don't get ready, sir.
that's right. That's right. Can sorcery be explained through psychological phenomena?
Yes. So Carl Jung was a psychologist. They call him the occult psychologist because understanding the archetypes is what allows you to be able to read those occult and sorceress type energies. When you learn how to read archetypes, then naturally, if you study in psychology, you're going to run into Carl Jung, you're going to run into Sigmund Freud. Freud is the father of psychiatry. And if you tracing back in the United States, you're going to run into Dr. Benjamin Rush, who was the psychoanalyst who created the methodology of oppression. They call it the Willie Lynch syndrome. But he was a early sociologist and psychologist who was writing about it. When you get to France, you run into Gustave Le Bon, who was studying sociology and wrote the book The Crowd. In this book, it tells you how to control the masses by controlling who the antagonist is and who the protagonist is, and how to pit them against each other to optimize the effect. Right? Now, when you studying that and you understanding that the sorcery is in the movement of the people, it's in the manipulation of the most amount of people by controlling the narrative of the information they receive. Right? So the count, once you know how the sorcery work, your spiritual self builds you a natural defense system. But because we don't never study the magic, because we think it's evil, we never develop the proper defenses, what they call in the religious world, Christian world, putting on the full armor of God. You have to learn key aspects of the magic and how it worked to protect yourself. And blood magic is why we were not able to break our oppression to the foreign agents that came over here, because they use a blood magic ritual in the blood of Crispus Attucks, the first to die, because you need what's called first blood. So that's why they make it prominent in the history books that you know who the first person to die in the American Revolution, right? Because by knowing that it's Crispus Attucks, now you know something else. You know whose blood they wrote the secondary constitution in, the one that's sitting in the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Now you know who blood it is, and now you know that they did it because they books say the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain. So when they put you under the spell and they made you believe that the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain, and they constantly telling you that a righteous chief, he was in the position of right from the land, on the land, and he was operating in his proper capacity as a leader on the land, and they executing. So now they have to write the contract in his blood, a blood oath. We gonna honor it spiritually, and because we honoring it spiritually, it's gonna play out negatively socially. So then that's magic influencing politics, that's influencing the minds of the most people. Because you got to realize the most powerful or the most influential tools for teaching people in North America is religion and politics, right? And entertainment. Entertainment is more apt to reach them than religion and politics in this era. But it was an era where only the religious stuff was influential. And the religious stuff was brought specifically to enslave you mentally and spiritually. And the only way to enslave you mentally and spiritually is to first convince you to put yourself spiritually under a spell that'll keep you from protesting mentally. This was done in the 18th dynasty in the war between the Amin priests and the Aten priests. It's known legendary as the Priest Wars. The Amen spell makes the God being subjugate itself by saying Amen. He's confirming that he will not outshine any of the people around him. But they don't know that. They think that it means so be it. But they don't study Egyptology and hieroglyphics, so they'll never know what it means. So when you tell them what it means, because a preacher didn't tell them it mean that, they gonna think you lying and you making it up. Never knowing that the preacher is just as deceived, if not so more so, if he actually believe that BS he be teaching, than the people he's talking to. And if he's deceived, that's called the blind leading the blind. Now, it was a time where the ones who know concealed it in the church, the AME. This is why all of the brothers from the lodges was AME Christians, because they was finding out what's going on and they was passing the messages through the church. But when Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream became the prominent battle cry in the nonviolent philosophy of Mohandas K. Gandhi, right, became the battle call, they abandoned the secret traditions. Only a handful of them still know the purpose of the AME church was to pass tribal information in the presence of the enemy, using what the enemy gave us to control us as a way to be defiant to the enemy's control. So they became seduced, never knowing that after Elijah Muhammad had that historical meeting with Elijah Muhammad, that he discovered that he had integrated into a burning house. Right? When he tried to tell them, nobody didn't listen, because all they still remember is I had a dream. They don't remember that long before Columbus came, we were here. They don't hear that part. They don't hear him saying that Europe came over and they undergirded their white peasantry with an infrastructure. Financially speaking, this is. They had what they call farm college grants, right? They don't hear that Martin Luther King. They only still hear have a dream, which was the least of his greatest accomplishments or speeches. But we don't want to talk about that because we want to follow the victim mentality, because we've been putting ourselves in this spell so long. It's embarrassing to find out that you
figure out where everything is because I'm in like dark mode. I can't. I have to, it doesn't look the same. So y'all, if I be up here messing up, it's because I have changed the. Uh, I've used a new background that StreamYard has and a new setup, and so I got to get used to it. But greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm so glad. I'm glad that that you are here. I'm glad that you, and even you are here too. So without any further delay, let's get to it. Let's get to it. let's talk. Let's talk about what's going on and what has taken place even in the last 7 days that we all need to be aware
hold on 1 second, Dr. I'm having issues with you.
of. Okay. Oops.
I had another app that started playing on its own.
Oh, okay. There you are. There you are. There you
Yeah, so it has been a lot going on. Um, I was telling people that Kamala's job was to fail miserably as the fall of the whore of Babylon, right?
Okay.
the purple and the pearls for the inauguration was the signal and showed you where you was at in the book of Revelations.
Now, what inauguration are we talking about? The one that was Biden's inauguration, or what?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, now when she came in, we forgot that Trump was standing in front of the church with the upside down Bible. And we
okay,
forgot about Nancy Pelosi tearing up the minutes in the Senate in front of the camera,
I remember that. I remember that.
right? Those are two different contracts being closed out on the same day.
Okay.
One is the biblical contract for the blood oaths, and the other one was the fraudulent contracts for the corporation to govern the people. Now,
And
what led to that was the January 6th thing.
mm-hmm,
Remember when the dude took the land flag, the one with no fringes, he sat at Pelosi's desk, right? And he was behind the Admiralty flag. That was the transfer of jurisdiction. So when you go back and listen to who sent him, you find out he was working with a shaman from the land, but he was also working with military top brass, right? We forget about that. Okay, so that was reclaiming the republic from the Democratic corporation, right? Democracy is told to us in a fictitious form.
mm-hmm,
When you read all communist documents about the adding of communism into a governmental system, they all refer to it as democracy,
mm,
right? So remember, Noble Drew Ali said the elephant is our friend, right? He also said, I left a watchdog for the people, and the watchdog is the elephant. And then the Hopi prophecy talked about the man in the red hat, right? That's recorded from back in 74, before Trump was even considered for the presidential campaigns, right? So the MAGA hat, the red hat, went from a white hat to a red hat to a black and gold hat. Colors is flipping the different organizational redemptions that's being made through the MAGA process. So you got tribal operations going on in the midst of standard government operating procedures.
mm-hmm.
So you watching the tribes do something, allowing the government to artificially run, and the tribes is piggybacking on that artificial narrative in order to get clues across the land in everybody's face behind their back. Only the ones who know gonna know what the codes are,
Okay.
right? So the Schumann resident go crazy when on election day.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's a massive response from a solar flare.
Now, is the solar flare, people are talking about, some people talk about the solar flare as it would be something to be feared or to stay away from. And then I hear others saying, it's a good thing and it's only going to, if it has a negative effect, it's only on those that shouldn't be here
It's
on the
gonna turn
planet.
some people's clocks off. Their time is up.
You mean they tick us, like,
Yeah.
right.
They life script has ran its course when that voltage go through. That's what they call the great solar flash. They're looking for it to happen any day now. Then when
So
that
we haven't had it
happened,
yet.
right. So when that happened, it's supposed to have a massive effect on the Schumann resonance because the Earth and the Sun is communicating. In order for Earth to get rid of the parasites, the UV rays have to be calibrated to the frequency required to get rid of the parasites.
And the
Earth read
parasites
the
are.
human parasites by mitochondrial resonance. The mitochondrial is the powerhouse of the cell. And from the source of the power comes the source of the remedy. So it has to be able to communicate what the DNA say back to the source,
Okay.
right? So then the the mitochondrial is represented in the soil of the earth. This how you could tell a better DNA match would be the DNA to the soil for us than it would DNA to a tribe.
Okay.
The people from the land have a DNA sequence that's characteristic of the soil of the land. They already know this, though. This is common scientific information that they just don't talk about. It's like they don't push it to the forefront because they don't want you to know they can test the land to see if you from it, matching it to your blood.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Have
That's
they
what they
been doing
used to.
any of that? Have they been doing any of that anyway? All along when they've taken a little sample of blood from the babies and
They always, anytime they taking blood, they experimenting on it and investigating the developments in the genome. That's why they
so
take so much to run the tests that require a drop.
and then all of these centers around that are paying drug addicts and everybody else to get their to donate blood. The purpose is probably more nefarious than we think.
Yeah, well, the vampires got to use the blood banks in order to stay stocked up with enough human blood to survive.
Never thought of it that way.
That's why they call them blood banks.
Because you can make a deposit, you can make a withdrawal.
Right. And the ones can go to the cash bank and then deliver to the blood bank and exchange the currency for the value in blood.
Really?
Yeah, why you think they pay you for blood? Then they also can use the cover story of emergency hospital usage to
Yeah.
justify the massive amounts of blood that they collect. It ain't that many people getting transfusions on the planet. So they taking plasma, separating cells. They running the red blood cells through hemoglobin testing to determine the processing ratio of iron to oxygen in the blood that's causing the rust factor. Because eventually the iron is going to be replaced back with the magnesium, and it's going to switch the blood ratio in the hemoglobin. It's going to look more like chlorophyll, and it's going to change and alter the color of the skin. That's all part of the ancient record. That's why they paint all those deities as green, right? Because when the solar flare go, it changes the chemistry of the genome. This is why we're not 12 strand no more. It's been upgraded to now the same amount of information that required 12 strands only require 2. But you don't have to be 150 feet tall no more either. When
Okay,
you
let's
had
go back
12,
to that. Let's go back to that for a minute. Just let's park there just for a minute about so when they start to speculate who built what and whether or not there was ET help assistance or whether or not there were giants that actually facilitated a lot was done. This when you say that are you talking about our people and we've come down just like computers have come down from room size to you can hold it in your hand.
right? That's called upgrades. That's called
Okay.
upgrades.
All
Now,
right.
what in the Darwinian evolutionary theory, they got what's called missing links.
Okay.
This is because of laboratory intervention in the genome. When you
So
realize that we've been doing genetic engineering since the beginning of humanity, and we was creating avatars to operate in this system of 3D operational matrix.
excellent.
Somebody got smart and figured out that if they gave us amnesia in the matrix, that they can recycle the matrix over and over and nobody will ever jump through the infinity loop.
Do you feel that when people have these so-called near-death experiences,